So, my name is Tommy Palm. I'm the games guru of King, and today's talk is creating Candy Crush and our recipe for sweet success. I want to start here. Who of you knows this mascot from before? A couple of hands from the older senior citizens in the audience. This is the mascot of a Swedish company called Fawcett. It was one of the biggest companies in Sweden. It was the third largest companies in the 1970s. Fawcett was making business machine, and that was considered a little bit dull, so they spiced things up by getting this mascot that they brought to the shows and things like this. And this mascot is today a collector's item among entrepreneurs. Fawcett is no longer with us. They left the stock market as a company in the late 90s. They were focused on making typewriters and didn't make the transition over to computers. And the part of the talk I want to do is here today is about disruptive innovation. This concept that Clayton Christensen introduced in Innovator's Dilemma. He's a Harvard professor, and this book is quite old. Many of you probably know about it already. So I'm not going to nag about that very much. So IBM is actually one of the few companies that has been dominating in previous generations and succeeded going over to the next generation of technology. Because one of the things that Clayton is telling us that the more successful you are in one generation of technology, the less likely you are to be the leading one in the next generation. And I'm going to be talking about Candy Crush, of course. And first, I want to give you some up-to-date numbers about this game. So, at King, we now have many games, of course, and our most current number is that we have 225 million monthly active users. And with Candy Crush in particularly, we celebrated our one-year anniversary last Friday, and we announced that we have now 500 million downloads of the game. And Candy Crush is being played more than 700 million times per day on mobile platform, which is a ridiculous number, I think. And Candy Crush has become somewhat of a social phenomena. And we can see that this is this week's Time magazine that has Candy Crush on the cover, which is pretty cool. Today's agenda can be seen here on this board. I will be speaking a little bit about the background of King. We've been around for more than 10 years. Then I'm going to focus on the making of Candy Crush, and then I want to talk about discoverability in marketing, because I think it's a very important topic in digital download world. So let's get Tiffy on board on this. So, as I said, King has been around for more than 10 years. And in 2010, King had already been making games for 7 years and was one of the leading players in skill-based games industry. This is an example of that with Candy Crush on the website king.com, where you can play and get a score against another player and try to the computer will match you against somebody who is equally skilled, and you can play about small bets of money. And King was making good money here and had been profitable for more than 4 years. The website king.com is still a very important part of our recipe of making games. We have very small teams with 2 to 3 people that try out game concepts in a very early phase. So this is how Candy Crush came about originally in 2011. We currently have more than 150 of these casual games, and we continue adding about 10 to 15 new ones every year. What happened in September of 2010 is that it was clear that our partners at the time, what we used to distribute our games, like Yahoo Games and the portals, were losing traffic in favor of Facebook. That was growing enormously. And at that time, it was considered that the Facebook game market was already cemented, that the big dominating players there with a lot of resource managed game had already, it was late to come into the market, and anyone trying had already missed the train. We tried 6 parallel experiments with 6 different concepts, and one of those concepts was called Bubble Saga. It was based on a game called Love Me, still available on the site, which is a bubble shooter. But this added a map structure where you could see your friend's progress. And this became very popular. And after just 4 months, King was the number 7th developer on Facebook, and we had staggering 2.4 million daily active users in total. With this is Bubble Saga, that is the leading game. We also have a game called Bubble Witch Saga, which is extremely confusing even for us who work there. And this is Bubble Witch Saga, and it was a really big hit on Facebook, and then started our climb up to 10 million daily active users and becoming the second largest Facebook game developers. Something that happened at the same time, like we released this infographics, was that there was a clear trend on the sales of PC. The sales of new PC computers started to decline for the first time in favor of smartphone and tablets. This is a projection from Business Insider, and I think it shows really nice how these markets, if you combine them, is really exploding right now. In fact, mobile is the fastest scaling game platform of all time. If you start from the launch date and put them all together, these are iOS and Android, Wii and Xbox 360, and PlayStation 3. You can see that these numbers are really dwarfing in comparison to the more than 1.5 billion devices that's out between Android and iOS today. Another great way of visualizing this is the installment of the new Pope. This is 2005, and this is this year. And you can really see an ocean of potential gamers ready to be tapped. Okay, so next part of this, I'll speak about the making of Candy Crush. As I said, it began early on with a very small team of 3 people who made a Flash game. We had already made several match 3 games before at King. We knew that they were very popular with our main target demographic there, which is primarily women between 25 to 55. And we saw that this game became extremely successful. And it was 2 new things with Candy Crush. First of all, the candy theme that seems to be universally appealing. And then the fact that you could combine 2 power-up candies together. This is the first time this has been made in a match 3 game. And this changed the dynamic a bit of the game. We combined that with the Saga concept from our successful Facebook game, and in April last year we released the first version of Candy Crush Saga with some more than 100 levels, and it became quite quickly one of the more popular games on Facebook. So I want to take a short look and dive in a little bit on how we work with the game continuously. So we try to add a new episode of 15 levels every second week or so. And currently there is about 455 levels in the mobile version of Candy Crush, and even more than 500 in the Facebook version. And this particular segment is called the Lollipop Forest, and it's levels 51 to 65. And level 65 is known for being notoriously difficult. We have a design decision in there to make the last level of an episode harder than the other levels, much like the boss level from traditional games. So we want people to have to grind these levels a little bit before they continue. And the object here is to clear all the jelly behind the candies by making a match on top of them. And it turned out that at one point we were actually dropping 40% of our players at this level. So what we did was to tweak this. So the game designer was informed about that this was going on from the data, and we removed it to a single layer of jelly there. I want to take the opportunity to also show the tool that is being used. This is some screenshots from our level editor, which is not extremely advanced, but it gets the job done, and it's made in with a regular web tool. So here you can see the different levels. You can open them up and go into a level. This is level 55, which was one of my personal favorites. And then you have a lot of parameters, and you can play around with and instantly test how the game works. And this is a fairly manual process with the game designers testing the games originally themselves, and then on the team, and then people around it. So it's not. There's been rumors in the news that there's a lot of mathematical process behind this, and psychiatrists working with it, but it's not that advanced. And by making this change to one layer in the corners of the game, we had a 50% reduction in the dropout rate of level 65, and we actually gone in to change it a couple of times more. So it's now more simple than ever, but it's still the most hated level in the game. And one fun thing that I found on the internet is this: whoever designed Candy Crush Saga level 65, I will find you and I will kill you, from Liam Nielsen from a movie called Taken 2. I just want to say that this is the guy. I had nothing to do with it. You're looking for him. And this is the Facebook team that is working on the Facebook version of Candy Crush, and they continue working with it very much, of course. So I joined King a little bit more than 1.5 years ago on the acquisition of Fabrication Games that me and Alexander Ekvall founded in 2009. And we were focused very much on making these cross-platform games, and had a cross-platform game engine that King acquired. And when I speak about cross-platform, I'm talking about with Candy Crush here, that you can access it from a PC or from a tablet or smartphone, and you access the same game state that's stored somewhere on the internet. And in the future, we could potentially see other interesting platforms here. There's a lot of cool stuff happening with mobile technology on many in the living room, for example. So Candy Crush was rewritten from scratch in C++, and we tried to focus a lot on making it feel that it was made for mobile. One of the design decisions we took was to make sure that it would work offline completely, that you wouldn't have to be connected all the time. There was a lot of initial focus on making sure that the game would be the same game, and that we could make that work on smartphones, tablets, and PC. And yeah, this is a part of the team, the guys who works on the making the mobile version of the game. Some of the challenges that we met with was, of course, when making mobile games, a big challenge is that I have a lot of different screen resolutions. One thing that was very lucky when it came to games like Candy Crush, and in fact King's entire portfolio of games, is that the game field itself is a square, which fits really well for both mapping it to landscape and portrait gaming. Another thing that is very different is the network traffic. As I mentioned, making the decision to make the game work offline was something that took longer time in development, but was an obvious, really good decision now. In Sweden, we tend to get a little bit spoiled with how the mobile networks look here, but if you go to, you don't have to go very far to see how the networks normally don't work in the subway in many other countries. The user behavior is quite different from PC to mobile and tablets. So we really focused on making the game start really fast and being able to quit at any time. One really important thing with Candy Crush is the fact that it's not a timed game. So you don't have to focus all your energy to the game. With this new infographics that we released, we also released a number that 78% of the people playing Candy Crush is, for instance, watching TV at the same time as they're playing. So this is typically something you can play with. You don't need all your bandwidth to play it. You can have a normal conversation at the same time, which is important. Then discovery, that I'll be talking more about later. So one of the things that we did to make sure that it worked was to rescale the graphical components, so you could switch the game from landscape to portrait in real time. And that was one thing that the device manufacturers were very impressed with when they saw the game early on. And there's a lot of these smaller design decisions that really made the game feel that it was made for mobile originally, which it wasn't, of course. It has been around for longer than that. So this is a graph that shows the impact on the King game. So here the blue traffic is the Facebook traffic, and the red is the mobile ones. And these are when all these games have been launched. And here is when Candy Crush came out. Currently, as I said, we have 225 million monthly unique players. And the interesting thing, this is if you look at only the traffic on Candy Crush, difficult for you to see on the other side. I'm in favoring on this side. So here is the Facebook traffic again with blue. And what happened when we launched the mobile version is very interesting, because we have almost exponential growth of the Facebook traffic. And the reason for that is that it became a better game. So it was easier to play with your friends. You could continue your progress from wherever you were. And we saw that it really impacted the network performance on a lot of different levels. So the people were telling them easily to show a friend, like, this is a game you should download. And it had a really positive impact on the game. And it created the first ever hat trick with a game that was topping the both iOS, Google Play, and Facebook at the same time. And we're very happy about that, of course. The reasons for that, just to summarize it, is primarily like the proven mechanics, which is extremely important, that we tried them and tweaked them when it was only the mechanics that we're focusing on. The candy theme, we think, is a really core part of this. Then accessibility, I like to categorize it into. So the fact that it's available on multiple platforms, no matter if you have Android or your friend has an iPhone, it makes sense to tell somebody about, this is a game that you should download. It's free to play, which is super important in when you need to market something, for instance. A lot of the banner advertisers say, there is no need on mobile games to advertising something that is paid, because it doesn't pay off. You need a free version in order to make banner advertising work. It's an extremely family-friendly game. We see that it works through all demographics. It started out, we tested it a lot on women in this age group, but it resulted in a game that works really well in a social family setting. And it's extremely easy to understand and get into the game. It's a familiar mechanic. Again, people have seen this before, which is important if you want to aim for really mass market. And playing games together with your friends and talking about it outside the game world makes the game extremely much more fun, and that is something that we see. And we continue working with the game, so the longevity of the gameplay is really really big. I've been playing it myself, and I play it together with my mother and sister, and more than 1.5 years in, I still enjoy the game. And we see a lot of this, that is in a social casual game, when somebody starts playing it, with Bubble Witch Saga, for instance, that was released more than 2.5 years, or about 2.5 years ago, it's still one of the top 20 titles on Facebook. So they keep coming back, and then maybe people quit playing for a while, but then a friend tells them, "Can you help me unlock this or something?" And they'll come back and start playing it again. I often use Google Trends to check things out. This is the Google Trend search on Candy Crush, and if you compare it with for instance, Super Mario, that's been a long-term favorite for me. We were about 3 times as big when it comes to searches. One great thing with Google Trends is that you can also see a heat list of where it's most popular right now. And currently, Candy Crush is most popular in the Philippines and in Taiwan. I was in Taiwan and it was completely unbelievable. Everybody was playing Candy Crush in temples, and it was just something that everybody was doing and talked about like the weather. It was. That is unfortunately one of the things that we don't share, but as you know, the monetization varies a lot between different regions. There's some excellent data from App Annie that shows which countries are best monetizing, and Norway is the strongest one, and the US is the second. I just wanted to take the opportunity to debunk some common myths about Candy Crush. So we treat all players equally. We don't differentiate paying players from non-playing players. We look at all players and focus on making as good game as possible. This is something that people seem to be. People like to analyze the game they're playing, and then there's a lot of rumors going on that once you paid, it's going to be progressively much harder, and they're going to try to target you, which we don't. The blinking hints is purely random. So if this is, for instance, the blinking hint I got here, but there's obviously a better move to move it here. As the game is not timed, if we were blinking on the best moves, it wouldn't be a game at all. You would just wait for the blinking, and then you could do this move. The blinking is there so it wouldn't get stale, because it's very easy to not see that there's a possible move to do. And the candies are added to the board completely randomly. So there's no sneaky algorithm that is trying to make sure that the last move you were almost there, and if you just pay 99 cents, you can continue. So I often get the question, what went wrong with the project? And I've said continuously that not a lot of things went wrong. I think it was one of the projects where all the stars were aligned a little bit, and then the timing was really great. But some of the things that we spoke about that we could have done better is that first of all, we continued from the first version of the Flash game. So we got technical depth when it comes to code. We used the same code. And from the beginning, that didn't seem like such a bad idea because of a very small part of code. But if you look back, it would have been much easier to rewrite that from the beginning to fit the classic coder error. And of course, as I told you earlier, the mobile team and the Facebook team were 2 separate teams. So at some point, we had the games working differently. So they were calculating scores differently in the projects. So what we did is we moved the team so they now sit next to each other and have mutual meetings. And that improved that quite a lot. So that brings us to the final part of this, which is marketing and branding. A lot of game designers and game developers is shrugging when you talk about marketing and branding, but it's actually, I think, one of the really big differentiator when it comes to this digital marketplace, where all the concepts are equally far from the user, and there are millions of game out there, and you have to stand out somehow. This is the top chart of the US iOS downloads, and it takes about 150,000 downloads per day when we released Candy Crush, so in January or when we made it to the top. So in January last year, and this keeps increasing all the time. How many downloads you need, and you don't make it there by coincidence. And we like to use a broad approach with as many channels as possible. Some of them can be PR, talking to the press about your game, advertising. The biggest channel for Candy Crush being spread is actually word of mouth, so people telling their friends about the game. But since the word of mouth works so well, we can also spend money on advertising because it really works. And in any acquired user we get here tells their friend about the game, and then we get more users. Hopefully you get featured by Apple, but this is not something that you can do very much about. You can't buy your way in there. It helps, however, I've noticed to look at what type of organization Apple is, that they are very much a hardware company that is driven about making hardware sales. So they like to promote things that promote their platform. So implementing their latest technology is very important for them. Cross promotion is something that is a really great resource as a game developer. If you already have fans that like your games, continue making games that they will like, and you have a lot of users for free once you have gotten them into your system somehow. And Facebook traffic, and this is something that I want to talk more about. I was talking to a game developer friend here earlier about the difference between free downloads and paid downloads, and these figures from Distimo, that's about a month or two old, is quite good. So to make it to the top 10 rank of the free downloads, you need 75,000 downloads per day, whereas the paid ranking is about 50 times 50 times smaller. So it's a very clear trend that's supporting free-to-play. So over to the Facebook traffic. When it comes to Facebook app discovery, it's mainly viral. It's people inviting their friends to play games on Facebook. When it comes to mobile app discovery, it's mainly driven by the app stores themselves. So typically Google Play Store and the App Store. And as I said, you can't buy your way to visibility there. What you can do, however, is use Facebook as a virtual app store. And it turns out that more than 50% of the smartphone users is using Facebook. And this is describing something called deep linking. Thank you. So in this case, with Bubble Witch Saga, you have a game promoting from one platform to another. So imagine you had a collector card game here, for instance, that was playable on both PC and mobile. So if you're playing, one friend is playing from his PC, and he's sending some sort of request, like a trading card request, to one of his friends. It shows up as a notification on their iPhone, tablet, or whatever, with this icon here. And if you click this notification, it will bring you straight to the App Store, to where you can download the game, if you don't have it installed on that device, or it will bring you straight into that trade. So you can send parameters through there. And this is if you have the same ID for the app and for the Facebook application. And it works the other way around too. If somebody is playing on their mobile and send somebody to a request to a PC. And this is a very, very strong loop, and definitely one of the core ingredients behind Candy Crush discovery. And there is, of course, many other discovery system within Facebook that is very nice to use, and very mature advertising system, for instance. One thing that also worked really well for Candy Crush is what we call the collaboration episodes So currently there is, in the first version, 35 levels that are free, and then you get to this where you either ask 3 of your friends who are playing, or you can do quests nowadays, or you can pay 7 Swedish crowns to continue. And we made a design decision to make sure that all our games were, you could play them from level 1 all the way to the last level without the user ever being blocked. So they shouldn't have to pay to be able to continue playing. And this is something that worked really well for us, with both kind of free marketing and also that people are actually paying to continue instantly. I would argue that the social layer of Candy Crush is actually pretty light. So Facebook, as I see it, is a really great tool to design multiplayer functionality. And in the social aspects with Candy Crush is actually outside the game itself. The fact that people like to talk about it outside the actual game. This is a great example from Instagram with 4 students having lunch and playing Candy Crush in a kind of lawn environment. But this is obviously something the game was not originally designed for, but what we see a lot of people socializing around the game and having fun with it. And nowadays we get a lot of free advertising. This is George Takei, great actor and internet figure, and he is showcasing a wedding cake that was used on an Italian wedding, and this is the type of advertising that I think is priceless. Currently, we have about 50 million fans, a little bit more than that, on the Facebook app page that we can communicate with directly, and it's a great channel that works both way, both for us to inform about new fun stuff that's coming with the anniversary, for instance, but also listening to what the players are thinking and what they want us to focus on. One common question that we get is, now you have the number 1 game out there, what is our next challenge and what we're doing next. And we've been focusing as a company a lot to ramp up the new studios, and as you likely have heard, we have a great studio here in Malmö that is working with Pet Rescue Saga that is climbing the charts in many of the major territories right now. And I think that's a very good example that we've been able to reproduce the success of making these type of games to not only to the people who were involved from the beginning, but there's a lot of talented game developers here in the Malmö area, of course, and that's why it makes sense to start studio here. So that brings us to the end, and I just want to summarize again what I've been talking about. So some of the key success factors for King has been to this repeatable formula of creating strong IPs. And now we have a cross-platform architecture which enables us to focus on the actual game making and bring more of these concepts to an already existing fan base. Which is getting bigger and bigger and kind of continue to focus these casual players that like easy to get into puzzles with a lot of social elements. And the way of doing this is still having small agile game teams that can communicate directly with each other and don't need a lot of hierarchy and administration around it. And what we can learn from this guy is that it's never too late to disrupt an industry, and that's a good sign if you're a small indie developer. Thank you. So this is my final slide, and I just want to inform you that we have currently more than 30 open positions here in the Malmö office, and we have a special mini site for that. We also have a game called the King Challenge that you can download to see if you can qualify to become a C++ developer, for instance. Thank you very much for that. I'm here for questions as well.